Give us free. Give us free. Give us free.
Your Honor, please instruct the defendant that he cannot disrupt these proceedings with such outbursts.
Give us free.
If we are to have any semblance of order in this
Give us
Mod Hotel, and welcome my conscious and unconscious family and peeps. This is the African Village Community Podcast, and I am truly your host of the show, JC, aka Afro Black, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut, without any fear, as I use my mic as a spear to chucka you with liberated truth. I am your host and African soldier in the struggle. My purpose and mission for this show is first to inform, enlighten, and engage. And you all know what I mean by engage. I want to engage with all those who claim they know the truth. All truth seekers and conscious family, I welcome you. This show is dedicated to all our ancient ancestors and to all those who have carried the mantle of truth. To every person with the ability to throw off the chains of comfortable habit and unwarranted assumption and move in a new, liberated direction that is guided by truth and observational evidence. No matter where that direction may lead you, my main objective and purpose here is freedom, mind, soul, and spirit. That being said, welcome to the African Village Community Podcast, and much love from our great universal African goddess and mother of all, living here and above. Ashe and Ashe.
In the house.
Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people. Aboriginal means the original inhabitant of a land from the earliest times. The ancient mound builders that built and designed the pyramids right here, not just by the Nile, contrary to popular belief and denial. Pyramids and huge hieroglyphics and pictographs on the ground are all mounds found around the Americas, north, central, and south, even Venus and Mars. That is documented fact that emanates from my mouth. So who exactly were these aboriginals here, whose ancient evidence of residency is hesitantly mentioned in this hemisphere? Were they the stereotypical Native American so-called Red Indians? Well then, let's be clear, ask any of their tribes if they're sincere. They'll tell ya those mounds predate their origins. Our past was erased and replaced with lies. Our achievements and identity plagiarized. We got amnesia of who we are, but we go way back further than the seats in your car. Aboriginal people, 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 Aboriginal people.
Hey, this is JC, aka Afro Black, and I am here with you for another delicious Black Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut. You heard me? And I am here today for another delicious Black Sunday to share conscious truth with the conscious community and with all those with an ear to hear. And so today's podcast topic is a continuation of last week's podcast topic in a part 2, Native American assimilation and white supremacy, the method of divide and conquer. Again, that is Native American assimilation and white supremacy, part 2, the method of divide and conquer. And so I have a lot of information that I want to share with the conscious community today. Not sure if I'm going to have enough time to share all that information and disseminate it to my friendly conscious community and those with an ear to hear, but I will do my best to try to get it all in. I got my queen with me here today on the show to share her conscious insight and wisdom on this topic and subject matter. I missed her last week, and so it's a beautiful thing to have her with me this week. Go ahead, queen, share with the community.
Hello, my beautiful people.
And so we're going to reverberate today on the subject matter and the continuation from last week, which is Native American assimilation and white supremacy, the method of divide and conquer. That topic is very important to pay attention to because there is a methodology of divide and conquer that the white devil have been using since his arrival. And when I say his, I mean his and her, because the white devil, we always talk about the white man, but the white man wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the white woman. So we know she is the brains behind her man. So let me change my theme music so we have something more comfortable to reverberate to. Here we go here. There we go. That as always, I love my intro by Brother J. Bach, Aboriginal people, and we are the children and descendants of the Aboriginal indigenous inhabitants of America. Black Americans are. And so you agree with that, of course, my queen, right?
Absolutely. From the information that we have found so far.
Okay, come on now. Sound a little more excited than that. Let everybody know that you're happy, girl.
I am. Just a little tired.
Okay, yeah, my queen is a hard-working woman taking care of her family. So she's here. Bear with her. She's here with us to share, even though she's a little exhausted. And so on that note, I have information I want to share. I got audio casts I want to share. I got an audio cast I really want to play that I think is really important because I took the audio cast from a show titled American Indian Truth radio show, and it's the host of the show is a full-blood Indian and who's on the tribal board as well. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly what tribal board he's on and what Indian he is, but he's sitting and he's interviewing he's interviewing Farrakhan, and they're talking about the relationship between Native Americans and Black Americans, and talking about the history of Black Americans, how most Black Americans are most Black Americans, the average Black American is not privy to his or her Native heritage. And so it's really important. I want to play this audio cast before I, speak about too much for it, but I got that I want to play. And, as well as I have some documented information that I want to read to my conscious community as well to basically cement the point that I'm trying to make. And that point is that Black Americans here in America, anybody, I'm going to say this, anybody who's a Black man and a Black woman in America who have 5 generations plus that leads back to slavery in this country, 9 times out of 10, you are a Black Native American. You and some might say, well, how can you say that? Or I can say that because it's documented proof. It's historical proof. It's a historical and documented fact. And so, for anybody to know this, you have to also comprehend, understand the legality of it as well. Legally, we are citizens of America. I was not born in Africa. My mother and my father were not born in Africa. My grandparents were not born in Africa. My great-grandparents were not born in Africa, and so forth. So that would make us native to America. If I went to Africa today, I would be considered a foreigner, not a citizen of Africa, because you have to be born in Africa to become a citizen of Africa. So just by the title itself, calling black people African Americans is a mislabel and a total lack of knowledge on the legal term of what an African American is. To be an African American, you would have to immigrate from Africa, come to America, become an American citizen. Or you would have to have at least one or both parents immigrate from Africa, come to America, become a citizen, and then they have a child on American soil. Then that would make that child an African American through their parents, like Barack Obama. He's an African American, literally, because he has at least one parent who's from Africa. His father is Kenyan. So just based on the terms of what a citizen is, black people in America are not African Americans. We need to get rid of that title. We need to let that title go. We need to let it rest and bury it, because it's a lie and it's not truth at all. What do you have to say about that, Queen?
Oh, that's true. It's true. I was filling out paperwork and I was trying to put the correct information on there since I was required to put ethnicity on there. And so it gave me the definition of what each stood for, and it said that an African American is someone with African descent.
And see, exactly. And
now my kids, I don't know any Africans in my family tree, so I couldn't put African American, but I couldn't put Native American either, because I had to be required for them to be registered with an Indian tribe. But
yeah, we as black people, we still got that slave mentality. What cracked me up is it doesn't matter how much education you got, doesn't matter how ghetto you are and what ghettos you come from. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you are allowing the system, the government, the white devil to tell you who you are a slave. And that's the whole point of what slavery was. The master told you who you are, who you were, and what to do and how to do. True. And so we need to realize that we, just like with Dr. Karinga, Dr. Malana Karinga in the Kwanzaa principles, one of the principles for us to define ourselves and self-determination. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Black people are not doing that. They're not defining themselves because they don't know who they. You have to find out who you are. Most black people, not the majority of black people in this country, like I said, 9 times out of 10, if you can trace your ancestry 5 generations back plus in this country, if you know that you was born here, your mama was born here, your grandmama was born here, your great grandmama was born here, your grandfather was born here, your father was born here, your great grandfather was born here, and so forth, and your aunties and your cousins, then 9 times out of 10 you are a black Native American. Matter of fact, you are a black Native American due to the fact that you were born here and all your family was born here. Now, when it comes to tracing our heritage, then it comes in to understanding and comprehending and researching history. Because the white man has did a wonderful job at destroying, covering up, and burying history, and especially black history. Okay, he's did a lot of recreation and reconstruction to his own history to hide. That's why when you talk to the average white person, they'll tell you in a minute, well, how do I know my parents or my ancestors were slave owners? I don't know. I wasn't back then. That was back then. They cracked me up. White people are wonderful at disconnecting themselves from their past. Anything that they do horrible, anything that they do that's evil, anything that they do that they know will put a bad flavor in somebody's mind about what their ancestors did, they have done a wonderful, perfectious job at hiding and burying and disconnecting themselves from their own past. But you know what? Regardless of what they've done, it's written down. And if they have destroyed documents and information, it's okay. Their fellow white brothers, like the French, the Spanish, and the Germans, have did a wonderful job at preserving history. And this is where we come with this. Now, as I said, the podcast topic is also the subtopic of our podcast is the methodology of divide and conquer. Okay. Or the method of divide and conquer. And to that reference, I want to read an excerpt from a dictator who's neither with us anymore, Adolf Hitler. And the reason why it's important for me to read a passage from his book, Mein Kampf, is because he used this very method that the white man has always used and is still using today. Creating a wonderful lie. and that lie is such manipulative and so deceitful and so finely put together that you don't even know that it's a lie. And that's what's been done to the black community. Do you know where I'm reading that, Queen?
Nope.
Right here on the Native American Assimilation and White Supremacy, our document article on down where it says research information article in books. Big Lie by Adolf Hitler, 1925.
Okay.
Please read that.
It says the expression was coined by Adolf Hitler when he dictated his 1925 book Mein Kampf about the use of a lie so colossal that no one would believe that someone could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. All this was inspired by the principle, which is quite true within itself, that in the big lie there is always a certain force of credibility, because the broad masses of a nation are always more easily corrupted in the deeper strata of their emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily. And thus, in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victims to the big lie than the small lie, since they themselves often tell small lies in little matters, but would be ashamed to resort to large-scale falsehoods. It would never come into their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe that others could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. Even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver and will continue to think that there may be some other explanation. For the grossly impudent lie always leaves traces behind it, even after it has been nailed down, a fact which is known to all expert liars in this world and to all who conspire together in the art of lying.
Wow. Woo! Did you hear that, Queen?
Yep.
I hope the conscious community heard what you just read. I hope the conscious community is marinating right now, thinking on, deep thought on what you just read, because this is exactly what has happened to the black community.
Yep.
Would you agree?
I agree.
This has happened to the black community about our identity. This has happened to the black community about our culture and our history and heritage. This has happened to the black community about our spirituality, as most black people embrace the white Jesus concept. Mm-hmm. This has happened to the black community as the white devil uses house Negroes, educated house Negroes, to promote and propagate the propaganda of back to Africa. Now, there was a brother just a couple days ago who sent me a message on Google and was saying, he said in the message, in other words, you crazy, brother, if you think that black people think they're going to go back to Africa. He said, even if what you're saying is true or not about black people being black Native Americans, doesn't matter. Black people ain't going back to Africa anyway. He didn't get the whole scope of the propaganda of the back to Africa theory and ideology. It doesn't matter if black people go back to Africa or not. And we all know that most black folks are not, because we are their permanent slaves over here. We keep the wheels of riches and wealth for those in the 1% making that money. We are turning the wheels of economic prosperity for these white devils. So, and it doesn't matter that he has a new slave class, which is called the Mexican community either. Doesn't matter. But my point is this, that he didn't see the bigger picture. It's the constant telling you that you're from Africa. It's that constant lie, repetitive, repeated, psychological, brainwashed lie of telling you the same thing over and over and over and over and over until your psyche accepts it. That's what the white devil hopes happen, to the degree that you become a robotic clone of what he wants you to be. Basically, still a modern day slave. And this is what has happened to the black community. Regardless if you say, no, it didn't happen to me. You believe in Jesus? Well, My mama was a Christian. My daddy was a Christian. My grandma. So well, I'm not a practicing Christian. I just believe in God. Well, which God you believe in? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the white man's God. And the white man, in most cases, don't even worship that God. He don't even believe in the very God that he's been promoting.
Most time.
But I know I see somebody here, or my nephew here, joining us here in the village. What's happening, nephew?
How you doing, man?
What's happening? I'm glad you're here with us, my brother. I'm going to continue with the program. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to raise a question if you had any question to what we're talking about. But my point back again, Queen, is that what you just read is so true. And it is exactly the sickness that our people are suffering from is the big lie that Adolf Hitler is talking about in his book. Would you agree?
I agree. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, one part that I want to focus in on right quick that I think was very pertinent to what we're talking about right here is when he says it would never come into their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe that the other could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. Even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver and will continue to think that there may be some other explanation. Go ahead, Queen.
That's like being in denial. So he's telling you that the people be in denial of the truth simply because they couldn't believe that they've been lied to on such a colossal scale. Even though they know there's a possibility that what's being said, they rather believe the big lie. They'd rather believe the lie because they can't believe that evidence has to be true. You have evidence in front of you stating that they lied to you, showing that it's a lie, showing how they decided to create that lie. And that kind of reminds me of the brother who sent me that message on Google when he was saying that, well, if what you're saying is true, if what you're saying is true, that black people are Native Americans, then he said this is a deep conspiracy. Yes. Remember, you read that. He said this is a deep conspiracy on a high level. And it is a deep conspiracy on the deepest, highest level. And you know what? The root of that level starts with the 1% of this country is controlling 99% of the wealth in this country. Their ancestors, their white devil reptilian ancestors did this. Okay? And they know it because they're reaping the financial benefits to this day. Okay? I have another one I want to read right here, which I think is pertinent right here. It's the story of race, the transcript. You see it, Queen? Yeah. Go ahead. It says, when European colonists first arrived in North American shores, beginning in the 1500s, the land was already inhabited by Native Americans. The Spanish, French, and English encountered frequent conflicts with indigenous people in trying to establish settlements in Florida, the northeast area bordering Canada, and the Virginia colony in Southwest. By the 1600s, English colonists had estimated a system of indentured servitude that included both Europeans and Africans. All right, stop right there. Okay. This is what the white did. This transcript I took. I wanted to show people, the conscious community, how these white devils manipulate when they tell history. I want to show you right by this paragraph right here that you read, Queen. I'm going to show you how these white devils use history to tell you the truth and tell you a lie. Look, the first part that he tells you is truth. He says, when European colonists first arrived in North American shores, beginning in the 1500s, the land was already inhabited by Native Americans. The Spanish, the French, and the English encountered frequent conflicts with the indigenous people in trying to establish settlements in Florida, Northeast, and the bordering Canada, and Virginia colonies and Southwest. But then he stops. Then he jumps and says by the 1600s. He does not comment no more, or whoever wrote this transcript, he or she, that's why I say whoever, because I don't know if it's a male or female, they don't elaborate no more on the 1500s. They'd say that that the Spanish and the French encountered frequent conflicts with the indigenous people trying to establish settlements. Listen, I know you can read it. You read into that? Well, I also read the little after statement that you told me to stop right there. It asked why the conflicts. the conflicts were there because the colonists were enslaving the indigenous inhabitants.
It doesn't say that, though.
It says it right here.
Go.
Why the conflicts? Because the new colonists had enslaved the indigenous inhabitants of the land as they moved in and settled.
Well, what I read right here says that by the 1600s, English colonists had established a system of indentured servitude, including both Europeans and African slaves. Now, in brackets, it furthers explain itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But my point being is, in the process of making that statement, the writer could have easily continued what they were saying by explaining why there were frequent wars. Okay. Now, when you read the brackets, it says why the conflicts, which is now. I want you to know. No. I want you to know. I wrote that. That was not in the article, my sweet.
Well,
I
you
put
should have
yeah.
that in my word.
Okay. Well, I should have stuck that, but I put that there. I wrote that there. Why the conflicts? Because the new colonists had enslaved the indigenous inhabitants of the land they had moved in and settled on. Now, I wrote that there and put that there. Because on the original article, it does not say anything any further about why the conflicts went on. But when you go research about the conflicts and the wars that went on throughout the 1500s, from 1510, 1520, 1530, 1540, with the Spanish and the French, you see why. Because the white man was not finna create a settlement and do any work of his own. He used the Native American inhabitants, enslaved them to do the labor for him. Them Spanish was not cultivating any dirt to grow any vegetation. Them Spaniards and those French were not digging any mines for gold with their own hands. No. They used the indigenous inhabitants of America to mine for gold and silver, to cultivate cotton, sugar, corn, and everything else that they were sending back to Spain.
Yeah.
Okay?
True.
So my point is, as I said,
yeah,
the point of me pointing out is how these white devils manipulate history.
Oh.
And they've been doing it, and they're still doing it to this day. Now, I also have let me go into also, I want to point out, I want to get some of these audio casts in because I get to reading, but because but let me, before I play an audio cast, let me read one more article to the conscious community. This article is titled Slavery and Native Americans in British and North America. Okay. Queen, till you turn to your documentation where, who are we really? Mm-hmm. And the first part right under there in yellow, not yet red and yellow, but yellow, that whole paragraph, read that, please.
Even though records become more reliable in the later colonial period, records of the Native American slaves received little to no mention, or they were classed with African slaves with no distinction. For example, the cast of Sarah Tawaquam of Rhode Island, her master listed her as mulatto on the bill of sale to Edward Robinson, but she won her freedom by asserting her Narragansett identity, but not all natives were able to avoid such incidents. The Carolinas were unique compared to the other colonies. The colonists thought of slavery as essential to economic success. In 1680, proprietors ordered Carolina government to ensure Native Americans enslaved had equal justice and to treat them better than African slaves, publishing these regulations widely so no one could claim ignorance. The change in policy in Carolina was rooted in fear that escaped slaves would inform their tribes, resulting in even more devastating attacks on plantations, which would prove expensive and bring unwanted attention from British rule. The attempted change in policy proved nearly impossible to uphold, as the viewpoints of colonists and local officials viewed Native Americans and Africans as the same, and exploitation of both as the easiest way to wealth.
Now look at that again.
Wow.
They viewed them the same. In the first part of what you read in the paragraph, it says, even though the records became more reliable in the later colonial period, records of Native American slaves received little to no mention, or they were classified with African slaves with no distinction.
So they classified them all as African, regardless of where they came from.
Yet today, we are looking across the Pacific, claiming Africa as our home. But I don't know anybody in my family, nor any of my friends are from Africa. But people want to say, well, that's because of the African blood. But no, your bloodline is predominantly Native American. The people who were enslaved in this country for over 100 years before Africans were ever brought here as slaves were Native American. Black Native Americans, brown Native Americans, light-skinned Native Americans. Not Africans. Africans came here free. Or they came here as indentured servants, meaning they worked for 7 years and they were given freedom and given a portion of land to do something on. Africans were actually treated better than Native Americans. This is the reason why they tried to make it change. They tried to make it change for two reasons. Now, this article that you just read, this paragraph that you just read, tried to say they were making a change to treat the Native Americans better because they feared due to the fact of them attacking the plantations. But that's a lie. When the white man decided to make a change and treat the Native American better, which started in 1790, it was due to the fact that he was already planning and implementing and processing a new plan of agenda, which was to divide and conquer the Native American people by dividing them by color. He had already enslaved the dark Native Americans and some brown Native Americans. He was already breeding himself into some of the Native American tribes already by taking wives. This white devil is a devil. Straight up, raw and uncut, just like that here on the Black Village Community Podcast. You feel me? And so due to that, I want to play an audio cast of this is taken from an Indian radio show called the American Indian Truth radio show. Okay, and Farrakhan is being interviewed. Now, personally, I've never really cared too much for Farrakhan, and I don't want to go into that. That's another podcast for another show. But it's one thing I can give Farrakhan credit for, and the Nation of Islam for that matter. When it comes to history, when it comes to historical truth, when it comes to politics, they will tell the white man to his face he's a liar and then prove it. So on that note, I present to you the American Indian radio show, and with interviewing Dr. Farrakhan, and they're talking about Black Native Americans, and they're talking about Native Americans and our relationship and what's going on and what the white devil has been doing. And so we'll take it from there and kick back and listen to this as the raw and uncut drop nothing but the raw and uncut here on that Black Village Community Podcast. You feel me?
The tree of white supremacy, its roots have to be exposed that tree may die, that we may live, regardless of race, creed, or color, in peace and brotherhood with each other.
And the stench remains. I would like to turn your attention to issues closer to home. There's a solid archaeological evidence that African sailors, more specifically the Phoenicians, came to the eastern shores of the U.S. over 50,000 years ago and coexisted with native peoples. Also, several tribes became involved in international trade on the high seas through the Phoenicians. And for some time, they've always had this story that, the Phoenicians were white sailors. In fact, they were not. They were black ocean-going sea merchants that had established international trade on the high seas long before the white man came to the Western Hemisphere. Our ancestors have been inextricably partnered for many millennia. There was a Native American presence in the last Million Man March. Since then, what has been the status of the relationships and alliances between our peoples? Have these bonds been strengthened? And if so, how? If not, why not?
To be very honest, there's always attempts by well-meaning people to put the black and the red together. I have been involved in that for nearly 40-some years, maybe more. But joining the black and the red still has to go through the white. The white people have infected the red and the black with attitudes that develop because of propaganda. And when we were slaves in America, many of the Indian tribes gave the blacks refuge in the tribal lands of our brothers and sisters, and they intermixed. So many of us show traits of our mixture with our Native American family. When Master Fard Muhammad came to America from Mecca to teach Elijah Muhammad, he asked us a question. And that question became part of a student enrollment. You couldn't even become a follower unless you recited the student enrollment. And these were called the rules of Islam, meaning that these were guiding principles of action. And the first question was, who is the original man? Well, some of us have never heard a question like that, so he gave us the answer. The answer is, the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the God of the universe. Now, many of the native people that you see today don't look like the native people that the Phoenicians found here 50,000 years ago. They were much darker complected. But any time the enemy conquers us as males of a tribe or a nation or a people, the prize, the booty is our women. So they come among us, they mix their blood among us, and as we get lighter, we come under their sway. So just as it was in the Dominican Republic and under the French in Haiti, so it is in the Americas with our native family. The native family told stories about us, and we were told stories about them. So we got to get through all of the propaganda, all of the lies, to build trust with each other. We've made some very good attempts, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in those rules of Islam, asked us the question, what is the population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth? And the answer at that time in 1930 was 17 million with the 2 million Indians, making a total of 19 million in the wilderness of North America, 4,400,000,000 all over the planet Earth. You are, as a native people, an indigenous people. When the Phoenicians came, you say 50,000 years ago, a white man wasn't on the planet then. So it was easy for us to intermingle with one another because we are blood of each other's blood and bone of each other's bone. But now, when we look at our native family, my God, you are powerful. My God, the native family is rich. But so are we. We are poor individually. But this year alone, our economy, they say, we will have $1.3 trillion coming through our hands. But we are consumers, and so are our Native American brothers and sisters. So the enemy makes us consumers where we used to depend on ourselves before he came. We were eating. We built our own homes. No matter how crude they were ours. We learned how to live, how to master the environment into which we were bred and born. But today, something has happened to us. The native people, from what I read, own 58 million acres of land in what is called the United States. We have over 300, some say over 500 tribes, 58 million acres of land. 3.1 million acres of that land is arable, productive land. And nearly 40% of that is in trust. I don't understand that. 58 million acres, and much of it is in trust to the United States government. Do you know what that word trust means? What does that mean? They hold on to the land and apportion it to our native family as they please? Is that what that means?
I can enlighten.
Please.
I can give you some information on that. It appears as though 150 years ago, when we were under constant physical attack, genocidal practices, that once we became, quote unquote, in their eyes, civilized enough to talk to, they told us that we will take your lands and you entrust them in us, and we'll watch out for you. And that was a trick. There were over 627 treaties signed between my people and the United States government that they've never lived up to. They have not kept one treaty in the entirety of the 150 years that they've been here.
There you go. There you go. That's just a clip I want to play. I got a part two that I want to play as well. But so far, I'm just curious. I'm just wondering. Queen, you heard what that brother was saying. Brother Farrakhan, he was breaking it down. Would you have to agree? And you normally, I will have to say, if I'm wrong, correct me. You don't normally like Farrakhan either. But what do you think about what you just heard?
What I just heard sound like he was saying that that the indigenous people and the black folks here are the same people, and it's basically been stolen from them.
I got the same thing. He said that he called the Native American the black man. He said, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Did you hear him say that? I believe my nephew sitting here, brother Lamar, you got anything you want to say about what you just heard?
I think what he was saying also is that what y'all just said, the Native American people are the black people. Is when he was saying that the original man is the black man, he was basically saying the original people on this country were black people. Yep.
And he basically saying,
he was also saying,
he's including the Native American in that. He's saying the Native American is a black man. I would have to agree with that, because the people who named the Native American people, Indians and Negroes and blacks and coloreds, was the white devil. Am I wrong, Queen?
No.
You got this white devil running around here renaming, relocating, redistributing, controlling, dictating, telling people who they are, manipulating, transforming. The white man's a devil. The devil is not invisible. The devil got blue eyes, blonde hair, and he burns under the sun. And then when their skin get red and sore and scaly like a snake, the skin falls off like a snake. Raw and uncut. I'm just gonna be real about it, okay?
Too bad they don't renew their souls in the process.
Well, in the process, they got to wear sunblock because they're scared they're gonna get sun cancer. I mean, it doesn't make you. How can the creator create a people that cannot sit under the sun and absorb the vitamins of the sun? They're reptilian aliens. Something wrong with these devils. I don't know. Somebody give me something. I'm not getting carried away. I'm telling it raw and uncut. That's the theme of my show. Dropping it the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast. Just like that devil, you heard me. You're the devil. If you're not the devil, then stop acting like the devil. But you can't stop acting like your nature. You're still doing the same thing you were doing when you first came over here. You make some changes. You maneuver here, you maneuver there, you morph over here, you morph over there. But the root of the situation is still the same. The root of the situation is still the same. Black folks was getting killed and shot by cops in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Matter of fact, further than that, from the time of the Emancipation Proclamation to the rise of the Ku Klux Klan to the rise of the slave watchers and all the other slave organizations and slave hunters, and they morphed into the police department, and they were killing niggas from the time of slavery to the time they came out of slavery to the time of the civil rights movement and so forth. Things did not stop. And now we're in the year 2016, and these white devils with badges on their chest riding around in black and white cars calling themselves police officers and detectives and public servants are still killing black people, unarmed black people, men and women. Things ain't changed, and yet the federal government does nothing. The Justice Department does nothing. The president has done nothing. So on that note, I will continue my show. So I just have to drop every now and then, I get to drop in the raw and uncut. And my queen, she has an issue with that sometime, but she has to give me a little room to be me. See, when she ain't on the show, I'm me. I'm going to be me. When she on the show, when she not on the show, I'm going to be me. So I appreciate her perspective though, because it keeps me on note.
I understand what you coming from, Uncle, because when you read through, the histories of when the Europeans first got to the Americas. The indigenous people, the black people, they were actually helping the Europeans live on this land and, giving them food and things like that. And in return, the white man tried to enslave them and kill them off. Not try.
I understand. He did enslave them, but I will admit the word try comes to the part when you say kill them off. He tried to kill them off. So he couldn't kill them off. It was too many black natives. It was just too many of us around here. And then, I have even read an estimation of over 100 million Native Americans were in this country at one time, including the fact that there were over, as you heard Dr. Farrakhan said, and I will back him on that because I've read the same thing during my research, that 500 nations, not tribes, nations, over 500 nations in this country at one time, and over 100 million Native Americans. The question is, well, where's the mass graves at? I mean, this country would be graves all over this place if he killed all those Native Americans. You feel me? So we know where they at. I'm one that's talking to you right now. I'm a Native American. My nephew who's joined me on the show, there's a Native American. My queen, a Native American. We're right here. The person who's not a Native American and who don't even deserve the title of American is the white devil. Raw and uncut, straight up. You feel me? So on that note, I got so much information right here. All this information because it makes him and her look like the devil that they are. But I gotta read this information because I care about my people. You feel me? I want my people to know what I know so that they can wake up and see the truth. So on that note, I want to read this right here, and I normally like to hear my queen's voice, but I'm gonna let her voice rest and I'm gonna read it. Okay, this is titled, and this is also from the book Slavery and Native Americans in British North America. Yeah. because that's who came over here. These white folks over here today who want to say I'm not Britain. Okay, no, you maybe not be a Brit, but your great grandparents, they came from the Brits, who came over here with the French and the Spaniards and the rest of them white devils who came over here later on, the Dutch and the rest of them devils. Okay, and it reads like this. It is estimated that Carolina traders operating out of Charleston shipped an estimated of 30,000 to 51,000 Native American captives between 1670 and 1715 in the profitable slave trade with the Caribbean and Spanish Hispaniola and North colonies. It was more profitable to have Native American slaves because African slaves had to be shipped and purchased. There you go. What is that? What am I saying by reading that? I'm pointing out the fact of how in the hell it makes sense to ship niggas or Negroes from the Pacific when you got a country with over 1 million Native Americans, which the white devil calls savages. Huh? How the hell that makes sense? As I told some people the other day on Google, show me the picture of a slave ship. I ain't seen one. It doesn't exist because there weren't any slave ships. Huh? White men running around promoting in history books, promoting on the History Channel. History Channel is the most manipulative source of information. Boy, if you don't do your own research, that white devil will tell you what history is on the History Channel. If you don't do your own research, the white devil will tell you what history is on the Discovery Channel. If you don't do your own research, the white devil will tell you what history is on PBS. We got to stop being slaves to this white devil and his system. Because he'll give you what the white devil will do. He'll give you a lie and the truth together, or he'll just give you a straight lie. If you don't know the difference, he'll just give you a straight lie because he figure you're not gonna segregate, you're not gonna translate, you're not gonna research or investigate anyway. So he'll just give you a lie or give you both together because you don't know the difference. There is no slave ships called Jesus Saved. It never existed, huh? But we've been told that in the school system. We've been told that in history books. We've been told that on television and magazines. We've been told that in this white devil system that slave ships took 300 slaves captives from the shores of Africa. And then on the way through the Atlantic, traveling across the Atlantic Ocean, half the cargo died. How the hell that make any sense? If anybody just think to their damn self, how does that make any sense? How does it make sense to invest in cargo, human cargo, for the whole idea of profit, and then you lose over half your cargo? What most people are not privy to when they accepting this bull crap is the fact that whenever slave hunters or those who were in the business of the slave trade, it took money to purchase ships. It took money to have ships built. And then it took money to pay for the exploration, to sail, to do business. Because you got to pay for food. You got to pay for whatever you need to keep your ship going in case there's a problem or a crack in the hull or the sail get broken. That stuff was not free, just like stuff today ain't free. So they needed financial backing. This is the reason why Christopher Columbus was funded by the Spanish crown, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, who paid for Christopher Columbus's exploration from 1492 to 1496 when he ended his exploration in 1496. But yet, we got ignorant house Negroes that don't even think like that. They don't think about, who's paying for this slave hunter to go to Africa, to leave Europe, sail all the way to Africa to go hunt down Negroes. No, like it's free. Like, it didn't cost him a dime to get on a ship and have about 20 men, keep that ship a sail and clean and running, that, and he's a captain telling these fools what to do for free. You ignorant nigga. Wake up. So I'm going to tell you again, it didn't happen. There were no slave ships. They didn't exist. On that note, let me continue reading. It was the same paragraph, it was more profitable. It was more profitable to have Native Americans, slaves, because African slaves had to be shipped and purchased, while natives could be captured and immediately taken to plantations. Right here in the same book, Slavery and Native Americans in British North America, down in that same book, and you read under the subheading Narrative, which is Native American slavery over African slavery anytime and any day. We got to wake up, people. So on that note, as I run out of time, let me play my second audio cast, that which is a conclusion to Brother Farrakhan dropping the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast, and I shall continue from there.
There were 1,200 original tribes, governments here in North America before they got here. We had a centralized government 30 miles east of East St. Louis called Cahokia. We would send our representatives from all 1,200 nations every year to sit in conference with each other. They did not have democracy. They did not know what democracy was until they came here and saw what we were doing. Their United States Constitution is not theirs. The Iroquois Confederacy from up in New York, 6 nations, they had the Great Law of Peace. And if you go to your computer and print out the Great Law of Peace and print out the U.S. Constitution and look at them, the parallels are so close. Benjamin Franklin and his thuggish friends befriended the Iroquois Confederacy and tricked them into taking the U.S. Constitution from the Iroquois Confederacy's Great Law of Peace. Our Great Law of Peace taught us how to live with each other, taught us how to love each other, taught us how to take care of each other, taught us how to treat our elders, taught us how to raise our children. And they stole all of that and incorporated it in that doctrine that George W. Bush considered as a GD piece of paper. And this is how they got their Constitution. They took it from us, brother.
Thank you so much.
Believe.
Speaking on that point of unity, a year and a half, a little over almost a year and a half ago, because of all the thousands of people that I've met over my years, conversations with people that look like African American people. And when you really get down to the nit and the grit of it and ask them, what's your ancestry? Oh, my grandma was a Cherokee, or my great-great-grandfather was, I think he was a Seminole. And because of the stolen heritage of American Indians with black blood and black people with Indian blood, I felt that it was time to bring about a new organization that we call NCBAI, the National Congress of Black American People, Indians. And when I made the announcement, in 6 months, there were carloads of people from California, Oklahoma, Nebraska, people that came out of the Wampanoag people in Massachusetts, people from busloads of people from Atlanta. They all converged upon Washington, D.C. at this little church that only seat maybe 2,000 people. The aisles were packed. They were outside all around the block. And I asked them, why did you come? Because I had to see my family. And I said, what family? I'm black and I'm Indian. And I have never been to anything where black Indians or Indians with black blood came together under one roof. This was the first time in the history of this republic that black folks of Indian blood and Indian folks with black blood were able to come together as a people and not feel ridiculed, marginalized, or subjugated because they stood up and told the world who they are. You know what, brother? If you were to walk into any mosque in America and you just laid your hands on the first person or the third person or the fifth person that you see, you realize that you're laying your hands on a Native American?
I believe.
There were only 8% of the slaves that came to America. So how is it that there are so many more people that they claim are black or African American? I think they got the numbers wrong, because a lot of Native Americans are the ones that they're counting as black folks too.
Well, we're really one.
Yeah.
We're not going to let them count this is Native American, this is black. Hell no. We are the original people of the earth. I remember a few years ago I was in Africa, and the Pope, I think it's John Paul, was pleading to the Africans to forgive the church for the evil that the church had done to the indigenous people. So while I was in Africa, he was saying that we should forgive. I put a message out to the Pope on African TV, and I said, Mr. Pope, you can't ask us to forgive you before you repent of the evil that the church has done to the indigenous people and make atonement for your evil. Then ask us to forgive, but no forgiveness before repentance
and atonement.
And atonement. This is what I want to say to my silly black brothers and sisters who want to forgive. Want to forgive for what we've been through, the blacks in America, for 460 years, and the native people over 500 years. Forgiving is good. Peter said to Jesus, Master, how often should I forgive? And Jesus told Peter, 70 times, 7 times. That's an infinity of forgiveness. But let me say this to the forgiving family. Jesus was not saying forgive Satan. Satan was born to do evil. There's no forgiveness for him. There's destruction for him. It is you and I who have been made other than ourselves because of being under them. They bred their evil nature into us. So I'm looking at a red man, but I might be looking at my enemy parading as a Native American. Don't lie to yourself. You've been made white under your red skin, like we have been made white under our black skin. So you don't know what the hell you're dealing with when you deal with us, because one day we act like we are the real Native American, the real black man, the real Mexican, and then out of our mouth will come a satanic expression. Greed and lust. That's why we sell out our people. That's why on the Indian so-called reservation or Indian lands, there are leases to these white people who have literally taken the wealth from your land and made a few people rich. This is their pattern all over the earth. And it's this kind of Indian, this kind of so-called black man that is a stumbling block in the path of our progress. And I really say that we've got to clean up our act. And I tell you what I learned. 49% of those who inhabit native lands are not Indians.
That's true.
Well, wait now. How did they get everything from you and you have nothing? They come in posing as a friend. That's how they got Texas. They came in little by little. Then the next thing you know, they wanted to bring slavery into Texas, and the original Mexican would not have it. War broke out, and they took Texas. They took Arizona. They took New Mexico. They took California. You can't forgive Satan. And if you're dumb enough to forgive a devil that has been doing this ever since he's been on our planet, you deserve the death that you get from the hand of a snake who's walking in your midst, making you think that he wants to worship with you.
There you go. From the mouth of Farrakhan. I'm telling you, I normally, but when I heard him preach this, when I heard him in this interview, because no matter when it doesn't matter whenever he's being interviewed, Brother Farrakhan give you a sermon. That sermon made me want to get up and do some shouting, and I don't even believe in Christendom, but I want to shout because that brother was dropping it. Queen, what do you have to say about what Brother Farrakhan was talking about?
That was pretty powerful, and how he just showed us and spoke on how they did the massive land grab.
And how they still doing
How they still doing the land grab.
And
as long as they keep people blind to who they are and what they actually have control over.
Yeah. And what I love also is he's showing the pattern of these white devils. The white man ain't changed. He's still the same devil he was when he touched down over here in the 1500s. The same white devil who came over here in 1592. The same white devil who so-called emancipated the black man, but still kept the black man in economic and mental slavery. The same white devil who has children running around here, running the country as puppets to the 1%, posing as politicians. The same white devil who's running corporations that started out with slave labor on plantations like C&H and the rest of them, Marlboro Tobacco Company. They same white devils who employ their children, who get educated in Ivy League university. Same white devil.
Yeah.
Ron Uncut just like that here on the Black Village Community Podcast. And I didn't do this, but I'm gonna do it. You can always join the show. It doesn't cost you a dime, just be your conscious time. You can chime in at 855-445-9340. You can also chime in at 857-232-9340. And don't forget the key to get through the conference door, which is 94. Excuse me, I ain't forgot my chime in number. Sitting up there doing all that preaching, you feel me? But shoot, I can't remember right now. But you can always chime in. But the show is over anyway. I gotta go. I'll be back next Delicious Black Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut. And hopefully my queen will be with me as well. Queen, you got any last words before we head up out of here? I mean, I think we ended it on a wonderful note, letting Brother Farrakhan, I want to say Dr. Farrakhan, dropping the raw and uncut just like that. The raw and uncut. I mean, I love the way he put it towards the end. You feel me? Go ahead.
Yeah. With each and every show that we do, and the more information we learn, part of your intro says it most powerful is to not sit with a closed mind. When you talk about how you have to be open-minded and to see the truth and not get so complacent that you blind yourself.
That's true. And that's what has happened. Our people are complacent. Our people are comfortable. Black people crack me up. I mean, some of the most stubbornest people on this, I don't want to say on this planet, because black people have become, we've become like white folks in the essence of stubbornness, not willing to learn, not willing to research, not willing to investigate, not willing to realize that truth sometimes hurt. Sometimes truth don't hurt. Sometimes truth is bearable. Sometimes truth is unbearable, but still and yet it's truth. And you know what? We've given up on truth, and we got to stop giving up on truth. We've got accustomed to complacency. We've got accustomed to being brainwashed and then saying we're not brainwashed. We've got accustomed to this system feeding us convenience when sometimes things are not convenient. You feel me? We've got to wake up. You feel me? We've got to wake up, and we got to embrace truth. We got to embrace knowledge. We got to embrace wisdom. We got to embrace spirituality and not religion. We got to wake up, my people. Raw and uncut, just like that. This is JC, aka Afro Black. I'll be with you every delicious Black Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut. Now, next week, hopefully, I'll be doing a show, because I'm hearing people talk about, what about the DNA? What about the DNA? You got a lot of black people out there finding out there 80%, 70%, 60%, Mandé and Ghanaian and Ashanti and Zimbabwean and all this other, and these DNA companies ripping black folks off for their money. These DNA
companies ripping folks off.
Yeah. They play into black people's ignorance, and you know what? The only people who are benefiting from it is white supremacists. Raw and uncut, just like that. You feel me? And so, I'm going to be dealing with that. I'm going to be coming next week, hopefully, because I'm gathering my information. I'll be doing so much researching, and now I got my family I'm dealing with. So I'm trying to balance things, things I have to do as well as keeping my show going. But I'm gathering this information that I got. I got some information that's going to blow some people's hairs back, and I invite them to come on the show, just like I invite people to come on my show all the time. You got these coward house Negroes, as well as you got white folks out there on the internet disguising themselves with black avatars, and they white cockroaches, and they're trolls and cowards as well. They don't want to come on the show because they don't. You know what? Because you can't fight against truth. And this is the reason why you got people on the internet, rather than having intellectual, organized, respectful debates and conversations, they rather throw stones, call people names, threaten people, and things of that nature, like little kids, like ignorant children. And so, I'm a truth seeker. You feel me? I'm about truth. If you give me some truth and I'm wrong on something, now you done just expand it and add it to my knowledge. That's it. You don't want me to know, don't tell me. You might want to keep your lip button if you don't want me knowing some truth. Because if you correct me on something, now I'm re-corrected. I'm going to recorrect myself so I can be correct. So on that note, I got to go. We be back. We'll be black as always. And I'm going to leave you guys, as I did last week, with my favorite song by Brother J. Bach, The Aboriginal People. And I will be back next Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast. And as always, as I always say, wait a minute, let me say my queen. You got anything you want to end something on, Queen, before we go?
Just to stay united, to continue to educate yourselves.
Sounds good to me. Sounds wonderful and good to me. I totally agree. And on that note, as I always say, may the great mother bring us together on the wings of her love and peace and unity. And, I love chicken. So as I always say, love, peace, and chicken grease. I gotta go.
Aboriginal people, 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 Aboriginal people.
the pyramids right here, not just by the Nile, contrary to popular belief and denial. Pyramids and huge hieroglyphics and pictographs on the ground are all mounds found around the Americas, North, Central, and South, even Venus and Mars. That is documented fact that emanates from my mouth. So who exactly were these aboriginals here, whose ancient evidence of residency is hesitantly mentioned in this hemisphere? Were they the stereotypical Native American so-called Red Indians? Well then, let's be clear, ask any of their tribes if they're sincere. They'll tell ya those mounds predate their origins. Our past was erased and replaced with lies. Our achievements and identity plagiarized. We got amnesia of who we are, but we go way back further than the seats in your car.
Aboriginal people, 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 Aboriginal people.
No matter where you go in every country, we in there. Most of us did not come on slave ships, we've been here. Indian just means amalgamated more. The U.S. tried to wipe us out in 3 seminal wars. For each Aboriginal, 7 troops died. 90% of Indians were reclassified as Negroes. We fought European foes. Africa's great, but we don't look under our nose. Or now here's the Old Man River, or the Maasai sequel, knock out the Mississippi. We're the Yamasee people and others here like the Washita, the Chocos in Colombia, Dadiendes in Panama, the Garifunas and more. We're prisoners of war. Our titles, nationalities, and birthrights ignored. We got a huge missing gap in our past and been divided into race and some type of caste. Everyone else has a language, where's mine? Cause ours is long gone like your grandpa's hairline.
Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people.